I get in my inbox like some new way that I didn't even think about how technology complicates or overburdens somebody, right? Like, messages from a young parent being like, I have an infant and I like hate the fact that I'm on TikTok and not interacting with my infant, even though I know that she should be the center of my world. Or so and so other parent being like, I have 3 kids at home, and then I'm like not paying attention to them and I feel like it's bad, but I don't know what to do about it. Or, an 18-year-old student who's like trying to get off video games, or there's just like, it's sort of endless. And so a lot of the question is like, how do I actually get off of these platforms and do what people say, quote unquote, is like reclaim my life? Hey, I'm Gabriella Nguyen, and you're entering a world gone good.
Well, hello, my name's Steve, and this is the place where we shine the light on everyday people making good happen each and every day. Welcome to World Gone Good, your safe port in the storm of what the actual hell is happening on this planet right now. That's our new slogan. TMI. No, TM. TMI. I said TM. It's trademarked verbally. I screwed that up. It's a TMI, too much information. I think that works too, don't you? Today we begin with some stats about social media addiction. Did you know 210 million users feel affected by it, with 40% of American users ages 18 to 22 feeling addicted and 50% of British teens reporting signs of the same. 42% of young adults check their accounts multiple times an hour, and get this, TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram are the most addictive, with teenagers spending, are you ready for this? 7 hours per day on them. So the question is, how did we get to this point? And how do we disconnect from it all? That's what our guest today asked herself a couple years back. Gabriella Nguyen is the founder of Appstinence, which you may have seen in Newsweek and the New York Times and Wired and many more places, including where she went to school. That would be Harvard. So who's ready to practice some good old-fashioned abstinence? Here comes Gabriella from Appstinence to share her good story. So our guest today is somebody who wants us to stop being so reliant on socials, phones, laptops, and all those kinds of things. And I want to start this question with you right here and now. Why are we so addicted to our phones?
Really, there's 2 reasons that have become so plainly obvious through the course of doing this work, which is, the first is the sort of 2 categories. One is the fact that these technologies that we use and are so normalized. So think, Instagram, TikTok, hyper immersive video games, AI companions, the like, are designed to be addictive. And that is something that is a hard truth to contend with, that throughout, you can just go through your whole day, and the number of technologies that are designed to be addictive and how they're just perfectly woven into our day is absurd. The second one is we've also normalized a dependency. And there's like a difference between sort of addiction and dependency. Addiction is, you have like, 16-year-old girl who's on TikTok all day because that's where she's building her social capital. But then you also have a dependency, which is, using your phone to get into your car, to get into your house. Like you're not addicted to using your phone to get into your car, but you are dependent on it. If you don't have your, if your Apple Watch is not working, you can't get into your Tesla, which is something I've seen recently. It's the combination of those 2 together, and the fact that we've normalized this in society that has created a very difficult position for particular young people, Gen Z in particular, my friends and colleagues. We were trying to figure out like how to navigate now our burgeoning adulthood with a society that has made it increasingly more accepted to be so dependent on these technologies and addicted to these technologies, but also in many ways mandated it.
And reliant on it.
Right.
So the question becomes this: you are a Gen Zer yourself. Do you fall into that category?
Yes, I do fall into the category. I
Okay.
am 24 years old as of recording.
Okay, great. So I am a Gen Xer. So I could be your okay, let's reveal. Let's go to Maury Povich right now. We're going to reveal that I am not your father, but I could be your father. My point in saying that is I was around before any of this existed. I was part of the latchkey kid generation. I was part of the kid who came home from school with no mom or dad at home, and I made my own sandwich in the toaster oven, even though I was told repeatedly not to use the toaster oven. I was a kid who would go out and we just go out and play in the woods, and our parents would have no idea that we were going into. We literally used to go into these giant sewer openings. We'd rip the gate open and go in. Yeah, we were nuts, but that's what boys of my ilk in the 70s did. But something shifted and something changed, and a narrative change that I've noticed, and we've talked about it on the show, which is there is a version of myself that I put out there when I'm using my phone versus the truth of who I am. And that's the part for me that feels disingenuous. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting is before even noting that difference, which is like, oh, when I use my phone, it feels disingenuous, is in particular for people in my generation. So that'd be Gen Z. So Gen Z is anyone born between around 96 to 2012. That feeling of, oh, it's disingenuous, you either oftentimes don't have for a very long time until you get a little bit older because your life is the phone, right? Like it is the
Right.
social capital, is the self-image you've built through the various platforms that you've used. So that even that initial even indicator, that light that you, Steve, have going off inside saying like, oh, this is disingenuous, is part of the coming of age of my generation as society as a whole becomes more aware of how these technologies manipulate our sense of self. But to even bring people to that point where that light is even there to go off is a whole other uh, journey as well. And we can get into that, I guess, a bit later, but it can be a very emotional experience.
Yeah, because you yourself, I read a little bit up on you. I like to do a little research on my guests. You didn't grow up with a lot of technology. Was that because it wasn't available to you, or because your parents made a decision to not have you be taking part in, like, the iPad generation? You know what I mean? Like the kid screaming, here's an iPad. The kid screaming, here's a phone.
Yeah. So for me, so I was born in 2001 in Silicon Valley. So this was a time, if people, any of your listeners are from the area, remember like people were very excited, right? Like Facebook comes out a little after I was born, and the iPhone comes out when I'm still a kid. So there's like this sort of buzz about it. And naturally, I got, as most kids did, like these technologies from a very young age. The exception was a TV in the house. So my dad felt very strongly about the TV in the home, and we had it maybe for just a blink at the beginning of my childhood, but he did not want us to have a TV after that point, and our TV had broken or something like that. And so this idea of having this center of gravity of the TV in the home was not something that I had. But
And
what we
why,
did,
can I ask why that is? Why did he feel that way? And what shifted?
yeah, so my dad has always been, is to this day, a very interesting character. So half of my family are refugees of the Vietnam War. And so my dad has always had this sort of sensitivity to media messaging as a whole, or this idea that external input through media. And media isn't just TV, right? It's news, it's newspapers, it's radio. Like the idea of input coming through media is something he had always been sensitive to. And at the time, being in Silicon Valley, he seemed crazy, frankly. I mean, like I remember when he got rid of the TV, my principal in elementary school found out that he had gotten rid of the TV. She was like, "Oh, you poor children." And now it's the opposite trend. Now it's like parents are like, how do I keep the kid the smart TV that plays Netflix, YouTube, but also can hook up video games and they can stream stuff from their computer? Like, how do I keep my kids from that? Right. And so he was I guess probably about at least 20 years ahead of his time, probably more than that. And has stayed strong on that belief. And so that's why we didn't have the TV. But this was again, the other side of the story was this was also a time when these technologies were new. Like the iPhone came out 2007 with the iPod Touch. And so that was something that he had pushed against. But the pressure on parents today, even years after the initial launch of these products, the pressure on parents today to give their kids a phone is immense. It's lessening now with the larger cultural awareness, but is still very heavy across the board. Um, and also being in Silicon Valley, like the pressure on him to let us get a phone or, social media, that kind of stuff was huge. And so that's why I still ended up getting an iPod Touch when I was 9. I had social media since I was 10. And then for over 10 years after that point, I was one app. As soon as the app got introduced, I had it. I had, Instagram, Snapchat, then I got TikTok later, and then I had like a new iPhone at least every other year, probably. Spent a lot of my hours online. I had a period where I was playing video games a lot, like whatever there in the 2010s as the internet was changing rapidly, I was on the receiving end of it. And all my friends were too. And this was life for us. This was not, we didn't have as soon as we were using our phones, we had that warning light going off, like you were saying that you did.
Yeah, because you didn't have a before. Your dad had a before. I had a before.
Right.
You didn't have a before to reference. I mean, because you were too young, which makes complete sense. And the immediacy of it. There's an immediacy of much like a slot machine. You know what I mean? In Las Vegas, which I have been to many a time. There's an immediacy of that feeling. Of that gambling feeling and that search feeling and that wanting to fulfill it feel.
Exactly. There's that feeling of it's part of the work that I kind of do with my colleagues and team at Appstinence, which is trying to create language to describe this, right? I mean, even the buzzwords that you see when you kind of look up, digital wellness and sort of internet use in kids is screen time. That phrase screen time, but that word itself even implies that somehow fundamentally the issue is time. But when
Right.
you grow up online, like the experiences I talk about that I had and that absence, we as a team and our own upbringings had, time is one facet of a whole laundry list of other things that we experience growing up online. Like you build your identity on these platforms, you use it to figure out what's going on in your immediate communities and around the world, and this like sense of your place, your sense of agency and your position in the world is all mediated by these platforms. And somewhere in there as well is time, right? But we don't have the nuance of the language in order to describe what those experiences are, which is in part like what abstinence as a word is to describe what was otherwise a very long phrase that I would use to describe to people my lifestyle, which is I don't use social media and I still own my old smartphone, but I don't use it because I don't want to always be like attached to a smart device at all times. And then I still use the internet, but I don't use like things like that. It's a very long way to describe that. But just to summarize it into a single word, to use absence is the start of a larger quest that we're on to build a new vocabulary for our generation and now Gen Alpha.
Who came up with the name for the company?
That was myself. When I started it, let's see, fall of 2024, started it as a student organization when I was still in university. And I was at the School of Education. And so sort of by default, the people around me were all educators. And that's something I had been so passionate about doing, which was what are we telling young people today about what exactly the internet is? And I think if you do a lot of general surveying of like just your average 20-year-old, what they know about the intricacies of the technologies that they use is a lot less than they should, considering how much they use it. Right. And so like I grew up using these platforms years before anyone even was in the mainstream conversation talking about, maybe like your typical 15-year-old should know like what persuasive design is, or what you know um variable reward schedules are like, and why TikTok is so addicting. But when I was 14, 15, that's not something that I was getting at all. So I wanted to fill that gap by using abstinence as this kind of the foundation in which a new angle on digital literacy, a new angle on technology education was being had, which was these technologies are designed to be addictive, which is not something people were saying outright 10 years ago.
And it's also a great name. Come on. I have to retitle things for a living. I do marketing, and abstinence is a great name.
Thank you.
Did you have just sticking on that for 1 second, then I'm going to get to something else. Did you have like a, oh, that's good moment when you came up with it? Or did you make a list of names?
Just one. So I
Oh,
think
it's good for you.
right now I'm still on it. That's the one thing is like I'm still on my abstinence journey. Abstinence is in a sense like fitness, right? Like you don't reach a point where you've just finished it, right? Like you're always on it. And in particular for people who like myself who like grew up with them from such a young age, like you are going through like your coming of age is the abstinence journey, is like detaching yourself from the internet and the way it's like entrenched your sense of self. And so I remember when, like, in part of that is having like longer stretches where I just had uninterrupted thought. And so it was like in that period that I was thinking, like, I kind of tired of using a full long paragraph to describe to people how I'm living. I wish it was in just one word or two words. And so I was thinking, like, what can I call it? And it was in a sort of a convenient way in the stretch of boredom. I thought of that word. Yeah, I think that's why people have like they say like people have like good some of their good ideas in the shower, right?
Oh yeah, that and when you're falling to sleep, me as a writer, as I'm falling asleep, just as the conscious is turning off, suddenly all the good ideas come to me. Roll over. I've said this on the show before. Write it down in a little journal that I have next to my bed. Wake up the next morning, try to decipher what the hell I just wrote down, but then go, oh, that's right. I know what and that's when your brain turns off. I want to ask you, and when you just sort of touched on it too, you made a statement that I read about, I'm going to loosely quote you here, forgive me. Many people are looking to run back into the woods and, get back in touch with nature. And I hate the word, detoxify. I hate that. That's me personally. But they do want to disconnect and reconnect with themselves.
Right. And I want to know what you just said about like the word detoxify. I think like another buzzword in the space is digital detox,
It's
which I
gross.
think the idea of detoxing, like I understand the role of it, but the role of it as it's a means to a larger change you make in your life. I think the idea of like, especially telling young people like, oh, just make sure you do a regular digital detox or something like that. It implies that like all the other time, like you're just baking and you're marinating in talks.
100%. And I can tell you, it's like when somebody says like a detox tea. Oh, I drink a detox tea. It detoxes me. No, it doesn't. Your body's not filled with toxins. It doesn't work that way. And what you just said is the same, and you already said it. It's like I can go to the gym consistently and see results, but I have to go consistently. I can't go to the gym one time and go, and I have abs. That doesn't happen. Same with, I'm sorry, it's same with alcoholism. It's not like, okay, well, I'll just stop drinking for a week or two and then just binge drink after that. And then I know a week after that, it's exactly what we're saying right now. It really is a life change, and it's a choice, but it's a choice you have to make.
Doing a digital detox is like sort of I think of it as equivalent to kind of like taking a juice cleanse, I would say. Like it can be a means to certain reflection. It can be a means to, there is definitely a role of it. I mean, also neurologically as well, like to help rewire your brain's reward setting and that kind of stuff. But using that as an end, like, okay, well, I will just have a TikTok and Instagram, use as much YouTube as I want, Netflix, etc., video games. But as long as I do like at least one day a week where I don't use them, that's fine. But the reason why that's not fine is because it is a lifestyle that you commit to. Like, it's not just about like trying to like do sort of a harm reduction. It's that you've committed yourself by the 6 other days of the week that your 6 other days will have a different rhythm and sense and texture or feel to them because you're relying on these platforms to go through your day. So that's like ultimately at the core, like what abstinence is trying to get people to do, which is not just say like, oh, I hate the apps, but commit to an actively positive lifestyle. Like it's sort of how with the podcast you're doing, right? It's like deciding that there is good in the world instead of always looking at it as what negative are we trying to solve. It's like what actively is going in the world that's positive. I think that's like so much of the richness of the experiences that I hear from people who are trying to just leave the apps altogether is the life that they are building that is positive, not just the things about social media that they hate, for example, right? Like I think that always being in a place where you're like focused on what you dislike about social media puts you in this constant negative frame. But instead, use that as a guiding light to then figure out what is it about your life itself that you love, and then you then want to pursue.
I love that. And I have to tell you, I've said this before on here. I stopped using a microwave over 15 years ago. I did all this research on what microwaves do to food. I have no judgments toward anybody who still uses a microwave. Most of the world does, but I live with a microwave without a microwave before there were microwaves. So I have this thing called an oven and a stovetop that does the job I needed to do. But I have gotten to the point, like with my mom, when I go home, oh, my poor mother, at Thanksgiving, I already gave her a side a side curveball there because I'm vegan. That's enough of a struggle for her. But at Thanksgiving in times, she used to cook all the food the day before, then refrigerate it, and then stand there and put everything in the microwave. And she spent 35, 40 minutes, I'm not kidding, heating up everything. And when she knows when I come to town, for me, don't put anything in a microwave for me. And I used to drive her crazy, and I'm like, no, I can take you through what it does. That's your, I don't want that. And I'm okay. I gave that up, and people think I'm bananas, but I'm okay with not having my food transformed. And I am also okay with not getting hot food in 30 seconds. I can put it in the oven and I get it in 15 minutes, right? And that's something that it's not the same of what you're talking about, but I did make that choice and I stuck by it. And that's also because, like I said, I had a before. I had a before that I knew I can do it because I used to do it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you say about the microwave because
Not to get us totally off topic, but
no,
go
it's
ahead.
really on topic, Steve. It's really on topic because it's about in part respecting, but also observing the other people. Sometimes people will not understand the trade-offs that other people make to maintain the lifestyles that they have, right? And I think that's like people being abstinent, deciding to not use the apps, right? There are quote unquote inconveniences that brings, but the ultimate end goal is not that inconvenience is a trump card. But in the convenience culture that we live in, right? Like the microwave, right? There's like it's sort of like the app version of a microwave. Anything that lacks convenience somehow feels like it's automatically either not working or it's not the best way to do things. And then, right, like efficiency in many ways has just bled into our culture such that the trade-off of not having something be efficient, no matter what positives that would bring, already feels like there's like this gut feeling that it's somehow like wrong in a way. It's like, but Steve, why don't you use a microwave? But you can explain to them till the cows come home why overall it's better that you don't use one. But there's still always, to other people, they will still maintain an idea or an image about it. But I think that's part of culture change as well, is towing that line and be like, no, like this is the trade-off that I like to make to maintain my lifestyle, and then just kind of leave it at that, you know?
Yeah, and that's also for me, it's a health issue because I used to have this gut that I don't have anymore. I stopped using the microwave, everybody who's listening, and guess what? My gut went away. And that's a whole other thing. I'll let you all go to Google and see, there I go. Go use Google or go to the library. Go to the library, to the Dewey Decimal System, the card catalog, which I used to use as a child, the microfiche, whatever you'd like, and look it up. You'll find it. Now, I want to move on. I want to talk about the 5D method, and I'd like you to take us through it. I can read it, but I want you to do it.
Yes. So the 5D method. So, I think, and this is in particular, I want this to be like very age inclusive kind of thing. Like, I think a lot of times, especially if you read online, it's like, this is like a Gen Z problem, or kids these days are addicted to their phones. I can tell you, like, from running abstinence, this is a problem in every generation, and every couple days at least, I get in my inbox like some new way that I didn't even think about how technology complicates or overburdens somebody, right? Like, messages from a young parent being like, I have an infant and I like hate the fact that I'm on TikTok and not interacting with my infant, even though I know that she should be the center of my world. Or so and so other parent being like, I have 3 kids at home, and then I'm like not paying attention to them and I feel like it's bad, but I don't know what to do about it. Or, an 18-year-old student who's like trying to get off video games, or there's just like, it's sort of endless. And so a lot of the question is like, how do I actually get off of these platforms and do what people say, quote unquote, is like reclaim my life or get my life back? So what the 5D method is a research-backed, step-by-step, like high-level program approach for anyone of any age to get off of technology that is designed to be addictive. But I want to just clarify like what exactly, to what end the 5D method is. And it's to bring you all the way from like couch potato, I watch YouTube for like 7 hours a day, and then I use TikTok, and then I play video games, to being engaged in your community and talking to the friends and family in the way that you want to, in a way that's enriching, feeling like you're actual citizen and participant of your local spaces and communities. But as you can imagine this is can be a pretty lengthy process, but this is what the 5D method takes you through. So I built it, started it with building it with my team when I was a graduate student. So essentially, the 5D method has 5 Ds in it. Decrease, which is actually going through the process of like decreasing your use of, for the example of this, let's take TikTok. Decreasing your use of TikTok, not scrolling as much, not interacting with people as much, and then also actively rebuilding your participation in the real world. Like, what do you do in your free time now? What are you doing? How are you going about your day? Are you waking up and immediately checking your phone? Or are you waking up, going through a reliable routine that's setting you up for a successful day? The next second D is deactivate, is now that you're actually starting to rebuild your life in the real world, you're no longer dependent on these platforms or less dependent to actually go through your day. Deactivate the accounts, but don't do it all at one time. Do it where you're starting with the account that you use the least. So say you use Snapchat the least or something like that, and then slowly build to maybe the one you use the most is, let's say, LinkedIn or something like that. Every 30 days, because these apps generally give you a 30-day deactivation window, taking that 38 days to rebuild your participation in the real world, allow your brain to rewire its reward setting, which no, it's not going to happen in a couple days. It's going to take closer to a month. Dr. Anna Lemke, who is a psychiatrist out of Stanford Medical, wrote a book called Dopamine Nation. I'm sure your listeners are well aware of this book, but essentially talks about like how long does it take for the brain to rewire its reward setting, and it's not like 3 days like people think. It is closer to a couple weeks to a month. So that matches the 30 days that these companies by happenstance give you in order to between your account being deactivated and the third D, which is when the account actually deletes. So you're going through this cycle of every 30 days, delete one account that you no longer want to have, and giving your brain the space to actually rewire itself and yourself the time to integrate into your more deeply in the relationships that you want to nurture, the activities you want to partake in. So the third D, like I said, is delete. The account kind of will automatically delete after 30 days. You kind of cycle through this. So say you have 5 accounts, right? If you stick to the 30 days, it'll take 5 months. But if need more time, you can stretch it out. It's not supposed to be like to a fixed timeline. Like I said, at the beginning of this, the abstinence journey can go on forever. And in a sense, it kind of does. The fourth is to downgrade, like actually changing the phone that you use. I think so much of the reliance that we have is the portability of our devices. Like if you're carrying a smart computer in your pocket, i.e. an iPhone, it's understandable that you're going to want to defer to it for literally everything. So I currently use, for example, I use a Mudita Compact, it's a Polish company. They sell a very solid, quote unquote, dumb phone. And then the last stage is depart, which is that sense that you've like officially made it back into the real world. I think this is something that at a client recently that I've been working with kind of all through the majority of 2025, a 19-year-old kid who reached his sort of depart stage when he was like went on vacation, and he had a day where there was just like low Wi-Fi, bad Wi-Fi or something like that. So he like went through his whole day without social media. And then he comes to me and he's like, going through like his abstinence journey, his 5D method. And he's like, I realized I could go through the whole day without using social media. And it was like an epiphany to him, right? So this is the 5Ds that go from being totally absorbed to the internet to wait, like I can actually go through my day without it and I don't need it and I'm not going to go back.
I recently moved to London 6 months ago, a city that I had to learn. It's very different. It's a very different place. And I lived in the United States my whole life. And we moved over here, and Google Maps became my best friend, right? To take me around the city. But what I started doing is I started challenging myself as if I started on a second voyage, as I used to call it, of, okay, I'm going to go to the Earl's Court. I'm going to go, am I going to West Brompton or Earl's Court? Okay, I'll go to Earl's Court. That's a tube. I know where to go. Okay, I'm going to get on. Which train do I get on? Oh, no, going east or west. I'm going east. Okay, where am I getting off? Okay, I'm going to get off at Edgware. Okay, great. When I get off at Edgware, I have to switch over. And what I did is I'd allow myself to do it once or twice with Google Maps. And then I would not let myself take the phone out of my pocket and go, okay, I'm going to be brave and see if I can do this from memory. And it has gotten to the point of like, okay, I know these routes. And it got to the point of like, okay, now I have to switch trains. We did this today. I knew we had to go on the Elizabeth line down to Tottenham Court. And I knew we'd have to go north from there because that's going east. And I was like, okay, we got to go north. And then we got to get to, we're going to Camden. Okay, the northern line. That's pretty obvious that that's what it is. I mean, I knew which one it was, but I'm also like, I walk down this hallway and there are these giant signs. You can't miss them. Way better than New York City, people. Just telling you that because I've done that subway system as well. And I just look at the sign and go, up, that's for Camden right there. It's 5 stops. We got to go this way. It's a left. It's this gate. It's platform 2. Here we go. Boom, boom, boom. On our way back, I got us off 2 stops sooner because I knew that the Elizabeth line picked up on that earlier one. And I don't know how I knew that. Well, I do know how I knew that. I learned and I applied myself. And yes, you screw up and guess what happens? You get on another train and go the other direction a little bit. But that has been like a really big challenge for me because, again, you talk about being literally lost in a place, finding your way. And it's trusting yourself and allowing yourself to screw up and go, you know what? I'm going to be okay. I'm safe. I know how to fix this.
Yeah, I definitely I'm going through that right now. I'll give you a very relatable, your exact story, because I just got my driver's license about, let's see, 5 months ago.
I love you, Gen Zers, because let me say this really quickly. When we were Gen X, we couldn't get that damn driver's license fast enough to get to the mall. Continue.
I took my sweet time. Okay, well, exactly. So I'm 24 and I just got my driver's license like 6 months ago, and it's I've been doing the same thing intentionally. I mean, part of it is the phone that I use helps me with that. Like, it's not when I'm walking around, I can't just immediately pull up maps to give me the location, like the turn by turn thing that I used to rely on. So it forced me
Right.
to be like, do I know where this is? And I am now living back in the town that I grew up in. This is, of all the places in the world, the city that I wish that I know like the back of my hand. And I have lived here for years and I realize I don't know where anything is. And people think like, okay, then what's the harm of using maps for everything? It gets you there faster. But over the last 6 months, I've been actively, we call it Appstinence, which is trying to get somewhere without using the turn-by-turn GPS. So my friends would be like, I'm being abstinent right now. They'll just put their phone away. They're like, I'm going to figure out how to get there. There's the benefits of it. People just immediately think of efficiency. They're like, oh, but I need to get there faster. But you feel like literally more connected to the place that
Yeah.
you're in. And if it's the town that I grew up in, the town where when my family first moved out, my family immigrated from Vietnam like decades ago, but coming to California, finding a place that they were going to stay and raise their family, like it's a very sentimental place to be. Understandably, it's been 17, and then increasingly now that I'm back here, more years of my life here, like I want to know the city like the back of my hand. I feel like I want to know what, not even just like where things are, but also like the people who work at the individual businesses, and like, being a regular somewhere. When is the traffic bad on which highway at what time? Like, it makes you feel connected to the spaces that you're in. So you don't want to just immediately trade that for the efficiency of getting where you want to go the fastest. Right? Like
Right.
when I go to a new place and I'm like, I have an appointment at like 3 o'clock, and this is like, I'm in a completely new area, country, or whatever. I will use maps. I'll use it on my computer or bring some other device with me to, use a GPS. But when I'm in my actual city, I really try my best to be maps in it and just be like, no, I want to love the place that I'm in. And if I'm going to do it, I have to, for one, like, take the time for the city to unravel itself to me. And it sounds so abstract, but I mean, anyone who's like tried to get somewhere without a GPS understands that like the route you're trying to go, like there's little cues about the route that you take that indicate to your brain like you're going in the right direction. That sense of like, no, wait, I think I know it's this way, right? There's like a sense you get from the
Yeah.
space that you're in that is so important
Yeah.
to build, but it takes time and the trust in yourself that if you don't get there within the allotted time, that you're going to do it better next time, right? And like that sense of trust, like it makes you also less isolated from yourself. Because think about it, like when you're reliant on the map for everything, the root of that is that you don't trust yourself to get there, right? So it isolates you from your own sense of self. And how do we feel connected to other people and ourselves is through trust. But if I'm using the map for everything, I'm not incentivizing myself to even trust my sense of direction, which is like the basic way in which you relate with the material world.
Yes. And what you're talking about is what we talk about on the show a lot is being present. Being present. And we talked about this before. Oh, God, listen to me. All I keep saying is here are previous things we talked about. But, when you go on vacation, when you go to a foreign nation or a foreign place, or you go somewhere, you're revving at a really high velocity because your senses are all functioning because you don't know where the hell you are.
Yeah.
And you're really, right? You're really like aware of your space. And this is a joke I always say is like, why do you go on vacation and by 1 p.m., 2 p.m., you're absolutely exhausted and need a nap? It's because you're not on autopilot. You're not just going through your regular system, your regular day. How many times are you driving? Anyone listening? I've done it where you're like, oh my God, I'm driving a car. And usually it's when somebody swerves in front of you, they go, holy shit, like you're awake all of a sudden. But again, it's about being present. I got to tell you, we had just lived here maybe a week or two. And in one day, three different people approached me. I guess I have an approachable look to me and asked me at the three different train stations how to get someplace. And I did not take my phone out. I just pointed to the map on the wall and I said, oh, you need to take, the Bakerloo line from Paddington, and you want to take that over to here. And one guy, poor guy, he talk about a job interview. He was late for a meeting. He was Italian. He spoke broken English, and he's like, "Please help me, please help me." And I said, "Yeah." I go, "Where do you got to go?" And he told me. I said, "Just come with me, come with me." And I got on the train with him, and then I took him to the next train he needed to go on. And I said, "Go 4 stops." And I put up my hand, the number 4, and he's like, "Thank you, bless you, thank you." And he jumped on the train. But again, it's like it's staying present. And I think that is something that so much of our phone, and I'm guilty of it myself, and apps that I get, I'm so used to going to for comfort, for a lift, for did anybody notice me? Did anybody like my post? All that crap, right? It takes away from being present.
Yeah, I think there's like a social reciprocity in, like, for example, stopping someone to ask for directions. Like, part of the defense of, like, no, I want to have the smartphone at all times for me to do it myself is you don't want to feel like you're imposing yourself on other people to ask for directions. But I think that's because we have not normalized, or I guess we used to have it but don't have it anymore, that the social reciprocity is good. Like, it should be that when you go to a new place, you can rely on a local to tell you where things are.
Right.
Those are how those kind of looser momentary connections. Yes, you're not going to turn this person into a best friend for life, but like, yeah, I remember when I went to London and there was like a really nice guy there, and he was like the security guard there, and he knew like he knew like the train like the back of his hand, and he told us where to go, and it's like creates a sense of like there's a place or people that create the sense of the place that you've arrived to. And if you feel like you're imposing by even asking for directions, I mean, it makes sense that you might not feel like you could get so much more out of being there if even like the what really is in a sense a very low bar, right? Like, I couldn't even quote unquote inconvenience a stranger to ask them about the place that they're from and where I might be able to find something.
Yes. And to the people of London, I say this, and to the people of New York City, I've seen it time and time again. I've been on the subway in New York City. I've been in the tube here in London, and somebody's trying to figure out where they're having to go, and they're looking at that little map, little drawing that's up there, and someone will say, "Can I help you find where you need to go? Do you know where you're going?" It's lovely. And people actually reaching out, and it's so nice, but it is something. I want to ask you one last question about the app, and then I want to wrap things up with you. The app itself, I'm going to read from the website, everybody. Advocacy and research, a push for classrooms to address issues of low engagement and attention due to distractors by laptops and mobile devices. I bring this up because who is your audience? Is your audience everyone? Are you focused on people of your generation, the younger generation?
Yeah, so, the actual entity of Absence is Gen Z led, and that has been the case from the beginning. It's been very important to us that in this large conversation that is naturally, some of the loudest voices in this conversation are twice my age, if not more. So it's been very important that the contributions we're speaking on behalf of the lived experiences of Gen Z growing up on the technologies that we are now all trying to like fix and like get away from. So naturally, because of that, it has drawn a Gen Z audience, but at the same time, it's also gone more international, drawn people of all different, every like living generation, basically, like grandmothers, but then grandmothers who are talking about their Gen Alpha kids, but that like they're here for their Facebook addiction. Like it's like all these different types of people. And we were sort of started at the School of Education as well. And so naturally, people who work in the field of education, whether that's, as a classroom teacher, whether we get invited to speak for a lot of educational institutions like colleges and like middle school students as well. It's kind of just naturally, organically drawn a very diverse audience. And I think that itself tells you the extent of the problem, which is like, oh, this is not just an issue of, the 12-year-olds these days, quote unquote, these days, who are on their phones all the time. It's like 45-year-old C-suite executives. And then you have like what they call screen your citizens, which are older people elderly people who are addicted to their phones, and it's like a big audience. But I think it was important that the team is and stays for the time being like Gen Z, because we do want to base it off of what are unique experiences, not unique knowledge about these technologies, unique experiences that one has from getting, say, TikTok when you're going through puberty.
Our word of the year, well, words of the year are our slogan of the year. Our motto of 2026 is say yes. So I want to know from you, what are you saying yes to in 2026?
Saying yes to eating meals with other people as much as possible. I think this is going to be a new thing. I mean, people are already kind of talking about it a little bit, but the fact that meals should be social. I think a lot of times we don't do that enough, I think in particular in American culture. So I'm always saying yes to any plans that are around mealtime as well, and making mealtime as social as I can possibly make it. Because what happens otherwise? If you think about it, right? You go to a restaurant and you see someone sitting alone. How often is it that you see someone, especially a younger person, sitting at a restaurant and they're eating their meal by themselves and they're not on their phone? Right? People will say like, oh, I'm eating alone. But are you really eating alone if you're scrolling on your phone while you're eating, right? Because you're not eating alone. You're eating while watching a YouTube video of a vlog or a podcast, or
There's nothing wrong with podcasts. Just kidding. Keep going. Keep going. I'm kidding.
you're not like really eating alone in that sense. And right, like, so that's what I'm saying yes to. I'm saying yes to making that buzz of a family dinner just a regular meal on a Tuesday if I can. And for all the people who are listening who if you work like a 9 to 5, like ask your coworkers to eat with you. You can just sit, have a chat, and then go back to work afterwards. But just don't sit in the back room on your phone eating, quote unquote, by yourself. Because trust me, there's other people who wish they had your company.
Oh, I love that so much. Okay, we wrap up the show with 3 questions. Easiest one first. Where do people find Appstinence? I'd say where do they follow you, but they're not going to follow you. But where do they find you, and how do they get involved?
Appstinence.org. We have a place you can send us a little note and join. We keep an email list as well. If we send out very sparingly, just big batch emails to lower the notifications people get from us. But if you're interested, reach out to us. You can also reach out to us at our general email, hey@appstinence.org, or my personal email, Gabriella@appstinence.org. And yeah, you probably won't hear from us very often, but that is the point.
And they do answer their emails, everybody, because I sent this one and she answered right away and said yes. And that's another yes you said. The final 2 questions that we close the show, every show with. Question number 1 can be anything you want to say. And it is this: who inspires you?
My dad. When I was a child, and like most children, you don't understand the things that your parents tell you. And when my dad got rid of the TV and he told us that we threw a fuss about it at first, and then we, like any child, just adjusted to it. And he held so strong on that, despite the pressures of the largest, richest, the wealthiest companies in existence now. And that is a fraction. If I even possibly have a fraction of that level of conviction in the work that I do, I will have succeeded. So my dad. Shout out, Baba.
And the final question is not a question. It's a statement to finish any way you like. It goes like this: tell me something good.
The strangers that I talk to. When I try to become more familiar with the town that I live in. The Uber drivers, the grocery clerks, the bank tellers who, yes, it's maybe part of their job, but who hold a little bit of warm small talk with me as I'm learning how to talk to strangers and make myself more comfortable with not always having control over my communications like I did all the years that I spent online. That's something really good for me.
Thank you, Gabriella, for sharing the good of abstinence. Next time on World Gone Good.
I do believe in the power of the written word, and I do believe in the power of books. I mean, I think, look, a good book can change your life. It can give you ideas. It can make you a better person.
Doug Page loves books, so much so he created his own site, Books by Page. Get it? His last name is Page? Where he celebrates stories and authors and the written word himself, which is something he should know something about after spending most of his professional career as a journalist. Y'all know how much I love a good story. I'm talking about them, reading them, writing them, so this one's gonna be good. Until then, be good.